Texas A&M just landed 5-star wide receiver Jerome Myles, which is a huge addition at a position of need for the Aggies.
You are Locked On Aggies, your daily podcast on the Texas A&M Aggies, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome on into Locked On Aggies. I'm your host, Andrew Stefaniak. Thanks for making Locked On Aggies your first listen every single day. On the show today, ladies and gentlemen, we're talking a little bit about, are we sure Marcel Reed is the guy of the future for the Aggies? We'll get into that. We're going to talk about some players that hit the portal. You lost a couple quarterbacks. We're going to get into that. But we're going to start the show talking about a real exciting start to signing day, which was the addition of wide receiver Jerome Myles. So obviously talking about who Jerome Myles is as a player, he had been committed to USC for a while now. And then the other day, he goes away from his commitment to USC and decides to make the move to play wide receiver for the Aggies. And this is an addition that, I mean, when you talk about a position of need, you've already lost a player in Cyrus Allen to the portal. You're in trouble at wide receiver. And here's the deal. It was already an issue with who you had on roster. It's not like who you had on roster was great and you got to try and retain these players. No, you already had these issues at wide receiver. And now you're kind of trying to fix this. So, I've always said landing a 5-star receiver is a great way to fix a problem. So let's read the scouting report on Myles. Jerome Myles is one of the top receivers in the country and has a ton of upside. He has a rare combination of size, speed, and body control and reminds us a bit of former Washington All-American wideout and recent number 9 pick of the Bears, Rome Odunze. He has an athletic 6'2". He's 6'3" listed now, 210-pound frame, and is a true deep threat who can get behind any defense. He has a track background with professional bests this spring. He's not just track fast. His speed carries over to the football field, and he can routinely blow past opposing corners who are giving him huge cushions. He adjusts well to football over each shoulder, shows the ability to change gears, and knows how to set up an opposing corner. He has large catch radius and shows the ability to make contested catches over a corner or catch a ball down by his ankles. He has strong hands, isn't afraid to go over the middle, and catches the ball well through contact. He's a tough kid who battled through an early season injury, missed much of his junior season, but rallied in time for the playoffs and had a huge impact on Corner Canyon State Championship team. He's a physical blocker as well and will knock down a defender on his backside and is really tough to find a weakness in his game. When you combine his physical gifts in terms of frame and high-level athleticism, there aren't many pass catchers with more long-term potential than Myles. Okay, getting quick into this, the film's great. Check out the film. But to me, what quickly stands out about Jerome Myles is just how good he is at everything. Obviously, in the scouting report, talk about blocking. It's not often you see blocking reps in a wide receiver's film, but you do for Myles. And that stuff matters, especially in this Texas A&M offense where they want to run the football. You need your receivers to help block at times. And when you have a receiver like Myles with that 6'3", 210-pound frame, they're going to be able to move some people around blocking a little bit. But I love a track star receiver like Myles is that the speed like this scouting report says translates to football. How often do we see this? How often do we see a track star come in and play football and he's faster than anybody, but it doesn't translate to the football field? That's not going to be the case for Jerome Myles. His speed is going to translate to the, obviously it has in high school and it's going to at Texas A&M as well. So, it's really going to be exciting. I think this kid's going to be an absolute star. I really do. I thought this we've been recruiting him ever since he got away from USC a couple days ago. I watched more and more film and I went, we got to get this kid. This kid's going to be a star. And this was a surprise. I read yesterday that he didn't plan to sign in this window. And then I get going this morning and go, oh man, he signed. Let's go. Awesome. And I was pretty fired up. So, that's incredibly exciting. Obviously, like I said, Myles is a 5-star, ranked as the 23rd best player in the 24/7 Sports composite rankings. And obviously the offer list just through the roof. He's a 5-star. Makes sense. This is a real shout out to Hallman Wiggins. Hallman Wiggins, the Aggies receiver coach, is a guy who comes from Alabama, where he's recruited some elite players for years and years and years and years. And then I kind of look at this and I go, hey, what's going on here? When is Hallman Wiggins going to kind of get going to Texas A&M? Because he really hadn't gotten going yet. But at the end of the day, what happens? He gets going with an elite 5-star. So that's exciting to see, once again, knowing that Hallman Wiggins is a guy who has proven he can land elite talent year in and year out at Alabama. And then he comes over to Texas A&M, and now he gets a really good receiver in Jerome Myles. And I'll tell you, Texas A&M, I was really concerned about the wide receiver position. Those of you everydayers here at Locked On Aggies know that. I've been concerned about this position. Obviously, you just lost Cyrus Allen. It'll be interesting to see what happens with some other players. Do you see some more guys leaving the portal? You're going to see that, I would assume. We're going to kind of predict here in a few days that. But point is, looking at this, I'm really anxious to see what happens with the wide receiver room, because it's already in a terrible spot. I said you're going to have to hammer this wide receiver room in the portal. That's going to happen. You're going to have to hammer this room. And I think that they're going to do that, but landing some elite high school talent is going to help in the long run at that. So I would really like to see the coaching staff nail receiver in the portal. But I'll just tell you this. I really am not kidding when I say I believe there is a world where you can see Jerome Myles play as a true freshman. I think he's that talented. And he's got the frame. It's, he's got the 6'3", 210-pound frame. He's got the frame for college right now. He's got the speed. Obviously, you'd love for him to get into campus early and see if we can get going there. But this is a kid with high upside. So, this is an NFL upside receiver. This is a first-round pick type of upside receiver, which is very, very exciting to get that type of guy. And you would love to see Texas A&M hit on a guy like this. You've obviously seen Texas A&M get some elite receivers over the years and kind of swing and miss. You would love to see this guy be a hit. And I think that that's realistic, because I think Jerome Myles is going to be a star. So I'm fired up about this edition. Looking at this, I think that you've got to find a way to make sure that you use him the right way, that he's utilized well. But I think you're going to feed this guy. I think he's going to be a possession receiver where he's a deep threat. You can get him on slants. You can get him in the middle of the field. You can get him in many different types of routes and different types of plays. So I'm fired up about this addition. It's just a big win for this coaching staff. This is a really solid, talented player in a position that you had to hit hard, whether in the portal, whether in high school. Obviously, I still think that A&M is going to hammer wide receiver in the portal, because you're going to need some older guys. Landing a 5-star freshman that really could give you some help early into his career never hurts. So while I think they're still going to really go hard in the paint at wide receiver in the portal, landing a guy like this is going to be big time for this program. I'm really excited about the Lamont Rogers edition at offensive tackle, a 5-star tackle. So, think about that. In the last 2 days, Texas A&M has landed 2 5-stars. The class right now, once again, this could change literally in the next 2 minutes, but sits number 8. You've got 5-star Lamont Rogers and 5-star Jerome Myles, 2 5-stars, both in which you landed in the last 2 days. That's an exciting way to finish out a recruiting class, is to land 2 5-stars. I'm all in on that. So, great job closing this class by this staff. I'm excited about that. Connor Weigman, Jaylen Henderson, both enter the transfer portal. Where do you go here from a quarterback perspective? We're going to talk about that coming up right here on Locked On Aggies. But first, I'll tell you about our friends over at Better Together. Better Together is the first cooperative daily fantasy application. Better Together provides a sense of camaraderie and enhances the social experience of watching sports. Makes you realize that DFS is fun alone, but like a lot of things, it's better with your buddies. It's a way to stay connected with friends when you can't watch sports together in person, and it puts your group chat to the test and lets you prove yours is the best. Download Better Together now from the App Store and sign up using promo code LOCKEDON for a free $10 entry to any NCAA football or NFL contest. Play with me in Locked On CFB Saturday games contest this Saturday. Remember the code Locked On because winning alone is fun, but once again, it's always better together. Connor Weigman, Jaylen Henderson both hit the transfer portal. I mean, you kind of look at this. And I'll tell you, I look at Connor Weigman leaving, and I say this seriously. I wanted to gather my thoughts. Like, this is upsetting. I really thought Connor Weigman was going to be the future of this program. Now, I can already tell you what's going to happen. Connor Weigman's going to go somewhere else. We saw some schools kind of pop up early. I saw Missouri and Louisville and Syracuse, and there were some other schools that popped up. But I have a real feeling that you're going to see the quarterbacks, Connor Weigman and Jaylen Henderson, go elsewhere and be really, really good. It was expected. This was expected. I've talked about it a lot. When there's a younger quarterback that takes over as the guy, the older guys are going to want to leave. That's the reality. Marcel Reed took over as the quarterback for Texas A&M. And now we're actually getting ready to talk a little bit about, are we sure? We're not going to dive deep into it because I think this will be a conversation we'll have later in the week, but are we sure Marcel Reed is the guy of the future? We're going to have a conversation on that here in a few minutes. But I just hate Jaylen Henderson obviously came into the portal. Connor Weigman, I just thought he was going to be the next star quarterback for Texas A&M. I hate that his tenure here ended this way. One thing I'll say about Connor Weigman, I respect the holy heck out of him for the fight and adversity he's gone through during his time at Texas A&M. The injury last year, getting benched, still finding the way to be an incredible teammate. I have a lot of respect for Connor Weigman as a person, as a football player. And I believe in him, and I believe the upside of him. Same goes for Jaylen Henderson. Jaylen Henderson obviously just wasn't the guy that, came to Texas A&M at high school. But you know what I'm saying? That's why I'm talking about Weigman. Jaylen Henderson's a darn good football player. That's going to fight. He's going to start somewhere next year, and he's going to be really good. I've said it. I think that the upside of Marcel Reed, I knew it was higher than Jaylen Henderson's. Now I think it's higher than Connor Weigman's. I think the upside of Marcel Reed's through the roof. Some people have some concerns, and I'm going to talk about those, and we're going to look at both sides of this here in a minute. But so now the question to me becomes this: where do you go from here with the quarterback position? Looking at this, you've lost Henderson, you've lost Weigman, you got Miles O'Neal, you got Hart coming in, you got the kid that we signed coming in. I forget his name already because we're talking about him later in the week. But I mean, it's really it. You were in a spot where you had elite quarterback play. You had three solid players that could have started at a lot of places. You just don't have that anymore. You've lost that. You now have Marcel Reed. Miles O'Neal, who's a guy that I think there's some legit upside there. I do. I mean, he's got a cannon for an arm. And there's no question that he has some upside there, and he could be a really, really good player. But I am excited to see what happens with this quarterback room in the future. The question becomes this: do you have to go get a guy in the portal to be your backup and maybe compete for the starting job? I was excited thinking that you weren't going to have to go get the $1 million quarterback, and I still don't necessarily think you will. you still have Marcel Reed, who's once again your guy. We believe he's your guy. We believe he's the future of this program. But do you need to go get a $300,000 backup? I mean, that would just really stink if you had to go spend a ton of money to go get a backup quarterback. And the sad reality of college football now is we are talking about it in aspects of money. I mean, that's what it is now. College football is spending and money and stuff like that. I mean, it depends what the coaching staff's seen out of O'Neal. If they believe in him and believe that he right now can be QB2, then roll with him. If not, I think that you're going to have to find a way to go get another quarterback to back up Marcel Reed in the future if you think that Myles O'Neal is not your guy. That's what we're going to have to figure out. So that will lead to an interesting few weeks, months here, knowing that you really might need to go get a new guy at quarterback. It's weird because I almost like I was expecting Henderson and Weigman to leave, but I was also like, you kind of forget, oh man, you might have to go get a new quarterback. You haven't had to do that. And it's just, I think that there's a world where Texas A&M goes and gets a backup that's probably going to compete with Marcel Reed, but he is there to just be the backup. Wish we didn't have to spend money on that, but I think we will. That's why the hope is that Myles O'Neal just is darn good and you don't have to spend that money. That would be really, really ideal for this football program. But I mean, I do have a feeling that both Henderson and Connor Weigman, I think that Texas A&M had a spoil of riches at quarterback. I think that Weigman and Jaylen Henderson, wherever they go, are both going to go be really, really good players. I mean, we kind of saw it with King at Georgia Tech. I mean, he moves on and he has a really solid career. I mean, I think that you're going to see this with Weigman and Henderson. I think they're both going to find a new home, and I think they're both going to be really, really darn good football players. So anxious to see where they go, anxious to see how they play next year, and I'm anxious to see what Texas A&M does with the quarterback position. I think they're going to have to go get a backup, so that's going to be interesting. Leave in the comments, are there any quarterbacks? And now remember this, though. When you're talking about going to get a backup quarterback, you're going to have to go get somebody that's fine being a backup quarterback. Like someone that is okay just backing up Marcel Reed. I mean, you're not going to find a guy that's willing to just come here. You might need to find a guy coming from a lower level trying to prove that he can be an SEC caliber starting quarterback and give them a chance to do that. I think that might be the type of player you need for this role. You're not going to go get one of the elite portal quarterbacks to come in and compete with Marcel Reed. That's just not going to happen. So you really might need to go get a guy who can come in and is just trying to compete with Marcel Reed for the job and prove his worth. I think that's what you're looking for here. You're not going to get this elite best guy in the portal type of transfer portal quarterback. That's just not the role that you're looking for right now. And you also don't want to spend that type of money. So I'm all in for going to get a backup. If Myles O'Neal can't be that guy, the coaching staff knows that. We don't know that because once again, we've only seen a handful of snaps from Myles O'Neal when I think he looked darn good. But once again, the staff's seen him every rep, every snap, every day. We haven't seen that. That is going to be something we're going to figure out over the coming weeks, month. But it's going to be a big part of this offseason for Texas A&M, knowing that you do now have a hole to fill at quarterback. So this is something to monitor closely. Speaking of quarterbacks, is Marcel Reed the future of Texas A&M at the quarterback position? I'll tell you why I think so, but I'll tell you why I've seen others be a little concerned with it. We'll talk about that coming up right here on Locked On Aggies. But first, I can tell you about our friends over at FanDuel. Get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Because right now, new customers can bet $5, get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. You'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Once again, a lot of fun stuff to bet on right now. You got some exciting college football games this weekend. You got the NFL. Fantasy football playoffs are coming up. I always say, hey, if you're eliminated from the fantasy football playoffs and that stuff happens, time to get on over to FanDuel and putting your money down there. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sports betting partner of the NFL, and of course the Locked On Podcast Network as well. Marcel Reed, a quarterback who came to Texas A&M, and we knew he was going to be a really good player, but what was the upside going to look like for Marcel Reed? Well, we kind of slowly figured out last year in the bowl game against Oklahoma State. And then when Weigman goes down with the injury, we figured out, oh man, Marcel Reed is going to be a really hard guy to keep off the football field. That's what we learned. That was the reality. And I think we found out that Marcel Reed might be the future of this program at quarterback. I've seen some concerned. I've seen some in the YouTube comments concerned about Marcel Reed as the future. Here's where the way, and once again, this is the reality of college football now. This is the way you have to diagnose this. You have to look at the quarterback landscape of college football. You have to say, okay, we have Marcel Reed, a guy who we believe in, a solid quarterback. Is he good enough to be the future of our program, or do we need to go get $1 million quarterback? And I'm asking y'all as well. I mean, this is obviously, you have to ask that to the coaching staff. I think you roll with Marcel Reed. I mean, think about this. You're not going to pay both Marcel Reed and $1 million quarterback. If you go get $1 million quarterback, Marcel Reed's hitting the road. That's just the reality. He's not going to stick around. He has no interest in doing that. So that's the reality if that happens. I also look at this and I say to myself, okay, if Marcel Reed, you bring in a guy, and I'm not talking about like a lower level quarterback to come in and just be your backup and maybe compete. I'm talking about a proven Division I or Power 5, Power 4 legit dude that's going to come in and be your guy. If that happens, Marcel Reed's going to get out of there. That's the reality. So you have to decide, do you just want to pay Marcel Reed, or would you want to go get a new quarterback? And I think that Marcel Reed, I think the upside's there. I think that he has stuff to work on. There's accuracy issues. There are decision-making issues at times. I think he was pretty solid, but still there are things you can nitpick. There are things he needs to fix before next season. No question to me about that. That's just a fact. That's just a reality. But at the end of the day, there is a lot that Marcel Reed can work on, a lot he can improve on, but I think he's going to be able to do that. I think that this coaching staff, Coach Klein, is going to be able to do that with Marcel Reed. I think Marcel Reed is the future of Texas A&M at quarterback. This is going to be a show-leading conversation either late this week, early next week. So I kind of wanted this to be a back and forth, ladies and gentlemen. I really want to hear y'all's thoughts. I know we're early into kind of the people starting to go into the portal and all that. Leave in the YouTube comments, is there a quarterback in the portal right now that you would want to go pay instead of Marcel Reed? Because Marcel Reed's going to need a little bit more NIL money, I think, this offseason. There's no question. So you're going to have to pay him too. So is there a quarterback in the portal that y'all would rather have than Marcel Reed? If so, let me know in the YouTube comments, and we'll talk about that player in a show. I'm really anxious to hear this because this is going to be a deeper conversation we have, like I said, either later in the week or early next week. So I really want this to be back and forth. Let me know y'all's thoughts on this. That's the prompt. Is Marcel Reed the future at quarterback for the Texas A&M Aggies? And if he is not, are there any players currently in the transfer portal that fit that bill that would be the perfect future quarterback for this program? So let me know those things in the YouTube comments, and we'll talk about it later in the week or early next week. That's going to do it for today's episode of Locked On Aggies. Big win for the Aggies, landing Jerome Myles. Lots still to come on signing day. We'll talk more about this throughout the week. Really, really thankful and excited to be talking about the signing day. It's a fun topic. I really enjoy it. If you haven't already hit that subscribe button on YouTube, hit the like button on YouTube. Helps the show out a ton. Also, leave a 5-star review on podcast platforms and everywhere you can find me. Really appreciate that. Hope everyone has a great rest of their day today, and we will see y'all tomorrow right here on Locked On Aggies.